Hey, what's going on, Who That Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And we have a special guest with us here on the State of the Saints podcast. We have college football analysts. We also have NFL analysts and one of the hosts on WWL, a good friend to the show, Mr. Mike Detillier. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, TJ. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Really do appreciate your time. We talk about Saints football for the last 3 weeks. It's been up and down. First game, they looked absolutely outstanding. Second game, it looked like they were one of the worst teams in football. And then the third week, they follow it up and they have a very impressive game versus the New England Patriots. Mike, my first question is to you. Who are the real New Orleans Saints? The week 1 Saints, the week 2 Saints, or what we've seen in week 3?
TJ, I think it's a certain identity to this team that's different from what we've seen in the past. Early on, they're going to win with defense, with special teams. Hopefully, we get Will Lutz back pretty quick. That'll really help. But Coach told us last night, we had him on the coaches show. He told us that Rosas is going to be here. He's not bringing in other kickers. And so I think a lot of that has to do with the fact he must know a little bit more than what we do, that Lutz will be back pretty soon. I don't know about this week, but probably the following week, if not this week. But also, too, they're going to run the football more. And it's been something I guess we've kind of preached about, that I think it's a big part of the NFL today. A lot of people don't want to hear it. No. They got a lot of people with all these stats and, or like Abear would say, them statisticals that don't want to hear about the running game, but it works. And your passing game is a work in progress at this point. So you really don't have a gauge on what works, what doesn't. Hopefully that gets better with once Michael Thomas can come back and he gives you a big addition at wide receiver. But this team's identity is going to be defense, turnovers, don't lose the special teams part of the game, and run the football. That's not what we have thought of when you watch the Saints. It's short, quick passing game, eat up a lot of time, put points on the board. Okay? Right. Those days are gone. You don't have Drew Brees here anymore. So those days are finished with, over. You enjoyed it. It was a great ride. But now you have new people, different positions. I think the surprising thing on offense, and man, if Buddy Diliberto was alive, he would say, I told you, lose your center. And listen, this goes back, man, Buddy and I were doing shows back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And the Gold Sheet, which at that time was a big betting forum sheet, came out with an article Mort Olson had wrote, and they did a 10-year study on if you lose your center during a game and he doesn't come back the next week, you outright lose that game the following week. And it goes to show. So I tell this to Kevin Mawai, because he was at Louisiana Line Camp during the summer. He was like, Mike, you bringing up gambling to me? I was like, no, I didn't bring it up. I'm trying to explain something. And he's starting to laugh. And he said, but he said, I get you. And after he thought about it, he said, Mike, it makes so much sense now thinking about it, because the center's the timepiece. He's the time clock. I get everybody settled down, everybody ready. We all on time. We all got to move at a certain point. We making all the line calls. We making all the line adjustments. You didn't have to necessarily do that. We didn't appreciate Max Unger when he was here, just how good of a player he was. Think about this. They went up in round 2 to get Eric McCoy, to take his place, and Eric's a terrific football player. Then the following year, they used a first-round pick on Cesar Ruiz, So you've had to use back-to-back early picks, so to speak, to replace Max Unger. That's how good Max was. And he could make all the calls. And then Drew took over making the calls and adjustments. Now you don't have Max, you don't have Eric McCoy or Drew. So you had Ruiz and you had Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
And goes to show how fragile that is when you lose your center and how big a position that is. And I say this every year, come draft time. Okay, yeah, I want the big time quarterback. Man, if I can get me a pass rusher, God bless me. Man, I want that because they few and far between. Cornerbacks are starting to get that way too now.
Yeah.
But center is such an important position to get. And you lose McCoy, and you've seen this offensive line has not played as well. Not near well. And he's an elite offensive center. So hopefully they can get him back fairly soon into the lineup. But the offensive line play has been sort of a rocky road too. And now Armstead out for a few weeks with the injury he has. So James Hurst, who's a solid backup, and I thought he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, he did.
Now we'll see if teams don't try to overload that side now, because that's the backside of your quarterback. That's the blind side. They try to overload on that to try to get pressure more on Jameis. But, it's a different look Saints team. We've said that the entire offseason. It shouldn't be a surprise to everybody that it's going to look different. But and what they've done defensively, and Carolina was a bad game. You just got caught on the field too often. It's 1-2-3 punt, 1-2-3 punt. You right back on the field. You get wore out. And I give Carolina a lot of credit. I thought what Joe Brady did offensively, game plan wise, was really good. I think he knew Sean, and that defensive concept pretty well. And he attacked him and really did a great job with McCaffrey and throwing the ball in those little slant patterns. All that worked for him. It was Joe Brady 101, because he told me that he was at LSU. This is what I'm going to do. He said, I'm going to attack the inside. I want to run those slants. I want to run it where the receiver can catch the ball. He's one tackle away. Poof, there's that in open field. I want to throw the football out in the flat to the running back. Now, at that time, he didn't dream he'd have Christian McCaffrey. And a healthy one, really good. So the offense is still a work in progress. But you're winning games a different way with your defense, with good special teams play. Despite the fact Rosas, he was disappointing, because I understand missing the 50-yard, but the shorter one, come on, you got to hit that particular deal. But how well Blake Gillikin has punted, your return units have been very good. So you're doing that there, and I think Sean has a little bit more of a commitment to the running game. And I thought he did last year, to be honest with you. I thought he showed more patience and a commitment to the running game than maybe we've seen in the past. In 06, when he had Deuce and Reggie, that was a different story, because you had those two guys that could hang your hat on. But it's a different way to do it, But listen, people get spoiled. They want to see these 300-yard passing games. Okay, you might see it, but I'm telling you, that's not what Sean thinks can win with this unit. Does not think he can win it doing it that way with this unit at all.
I look at this team, and I look at like a lot of the comments that Saints fans have about this team. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Mike, when you said that people are spoiled. When you're so used to like a certain way of life, right? You're looking at Drew Brees, making all the right reads, making the right decisions. Like, you kind of take that kind of stuff for granted, but now that we see that he's gone, you see how important and how valuable he actually is. But when you lose somebody that valuable, it's going to be hard for you to replace that, and it's going to take some time for you to get back to probably that that way it once was, or maybe you probably won't ever be that way. But I have an appreciation for the fact that the Saints are looking good defensively, because for years, like, the offense has been a catalyst for this team, and if the offense didn't play well or they had a down game, we knew the type of game the Saints were going to have. More than likely, they were going to lose. So it's good to know that you have to actually have a solid defense, a defense good enough for you to be able to learn and adjust and try to, take some time in order for your offense to develop. Imagine if this defense wasn't playing as good as it is, and the offense is still trying to find its identity. We'll really be in trouble.
The same that were complaining of what's going on today were complaining, man, look at Drew Brees. All he threw in them little short passes. You can't please everybody.
No, you can't.
I know why they have almost a 50% divorce rate in this country. I really do. And I'm not just kidding about that. Man, if you complain about that, can you imagine what you're hearing about other stuff at your home? If that's what you complain about, man, Drew Brees, yeah, he's completing them, but they little short passes, 6-7 yards. Now, Jameis, he can't throw the football. He's not making good decisions. He seems hesitant in the pocket. Okay. You complained about one thing. You complained about the next. That's just a handful of really elite quarterbacks in this business. And you can see them. I mean, they jump out at you of how good they are. You don't have one like that. Okay. Mm-hmm. You do not have one on this football team like that. So Sean's figuring out the best way to win. But this offense, I think, is still, as I put it, a work in progress to figure out what works best for Jameis and what works best in the utilization of the weapons you have. You get outside the New Orleans region, you ask people, who the wide receivers and tight ends for the Saints are? And you hear that long pause. Well, I heard they just picked up Kenny Stills. Okay. They can't tell you. Well, the guy from Tennessee, I saw him in the preseason, Marquez Callaway. Okay. But most people, they can't name you two receivers for the Saints.
Right.
So you got away with that a little bit with Drew because, he made some of those guys look a lot better than what they were. And he played to the strength of that wide receiver or that tight end. Yeah. When they walked away from here, they weren't the same guy. Yeah. They weren't as productive. It goes to show how good he was. But listen, Father Time catch up with everybody. And in business, any profession, it catches up to you. For Sean, I give him a lot of credit that I think if I would have told you before the season, 3 games into it, you're 2-1, you would say, man, I took that. Man, we lost to Green Bay, right?
Right.
I think most people thought, opening game, Aaron Rodgers, we lose that game. But we beat Carolina and you take care of business against the Patriots. Right. It wasn't the case, but you're still 2-1. And I think that's the thing in a reboot year for this football team. You off to a good, because this team has not gotten off to good starts. And I've thrown it out before. Over the last 5 years, they've had some of the best Saints regular season teams ever. They've been 12-9 in the month of September. Now they're 17-1 in October, but they're 12-9 in the month of September entering this year.
Right.
So now, you think about it. Okay, we 14-10 in the month of September.
Right.
In the last 6 years now, when you look at it, that's a winning record, but that's not an overwhelming record in comparison to 17-1 in October. Almost like it has taken this team a couple of steps into the season before they hit stride. Now, a lot of it, and I've heard Belichick talk about this in the offseason about how preseason is done today, how practice is done today. And with Bill at one time, when they were winning a lot, there was a lot of changeover on the roster because, okay, we won a Super Bowl. Man, I'm getting paid. See you, Bill. It was fun. And I got my ring, but I'm off. Now, the one constant was always Brady. And now that isn't there anymore. So I do think I'm interested in how this team makes progress over the next couple of weeks because it's like going to the racetrack. You buy a racing farm for a reason. Mm-hmm. It tells you, it don't tell you the whole story, but it tells you a lot about that horse.
Yeah.
How it runs. This football team, if it had a racetrack farm for October, is not losing a lot of races because they normally hit stride pretty well there. And you look at the schedule matches up the next couple of weeks.
Right.
In October, you play the Giants and Washington.
Yeah.
Neither one of them two teams are winning squat. I mean, nothing. Yeah. I mean, the Giants been the most disappointing team in the NFC the way they play. I mean, it's lousy. They figuring out new ways to lose. I watch Washington. The most disappointing thing is how bad they play on defense. Man, Josh Allen, he went up and down the field. He could have picked anybody to throw to. They wide open on every play. And Chase Young, and I get it, they got a pretty good pass rush, but you pinch them out to the edge and you get a lot of time. And anybody to believe that Taylor Heineke is a guy you're going to build around, man, if you believe that, I got mountain front property behind where I live here on the bayou to tell you. Because come on, you're not winning a heck of a lot with Taylor. And God bless him. He's giving you everything he's got as a player. Right. He's a tough guy, and he'll make some nice throws. But he's not a guy that you're going to build a team around. No. And Washington's been disappointing to me, to be honest with you. But more on defense that, we saw the Giants move the football on. Man, I'm talking about the Giants. This ain't no big-time team here. The Giants moved the football up and down the field against them. So it's a little surprising how well both those teams have not played well. And again, is this sort of what we're going to see from teams now in the future, in that you don't play a lot of the regulars during preseason? You had some quarterbacks didn't play at all, like Aaron Rodgers. He didn't play at all in the preseason. It takes a little while to get it up, but the Saints' history has been, over the last 5 years, that they have been a really good team in October. When you're 17-1, man, you're doing a lot of things right.
You're definitely right about that. I mean, look, they're definitely one of the best teams, like in October. But like you alluded to it, I mean, they always start off slow. They always do. I think I want to say last year they were like 1-2, if I'm not mistaken. And it's like it's amazing, like how and for a while they went without winning the opening game. So it takes the Saints time in order for them to try to gel. And now you have yourself a new, a new regime. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to really definitely take some time. But let me ask you this. You talked a little. Yeah, go ahead.
They haven't won the first 2 games of the season since 2013. In 2013, man, I got rid of my shoes that I had in 2013, so I know that wasn't yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, look, it definitely takes them some time, but it's just a testament to how good they are at making adjustments. How successful they've been. Like when they, at the beginning of the season, they start off slow, but then they end up like having some of the best records in football. So that's definitely a testament to that coaching staff. But let me ask you about this. There's been a lot of talk about the offensive line. Is Jameis holding the ball on too long? Is the offensive line not as good as we thought they were? Was Drew Brees disguising a lot of the inconsistencies of this offensive line? What do you think about the offensive line play, as a whole? Do you think that it's about Jameis Winston possibly holding all of the ball too long? Because what Saints fans are saying is you're looking at people like great right tackle like Ryan Ramczyk losing assignments. So what do you think about that?
It's a little bit of everything. If it was just one thing, TJ, you could fix it real quick. But it's not just one thing. You got receivers not getting open downfield. Takes a little time for familiarity with quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, tight ends. We all thought Adam Troutman would be an impact player. What has he done? 3 catches in 3 games? So he's done much of anything there at the tight end position. You've had some breakdowns along the offensive line. There's no question about it. You've seen a lot of overload sets where they're coming in with more blockers than what you got. Right. So they want to try to confuse you a little bit, and they want to try to confuse Jameis with that. So, and Jameis has been erratic. Come on, you can't cut to the chase that he's had moments where, man, he threw a couple passes to Deontay Harris. You couldn't ask a quarterback to throw the football better than that. I mean, it was a laser shot. And then others, like, what? Like the one for Callaway for the touchdown, you could see in Sean's face, like, wait, what? Okay. And he can say, well, I was season A-Bear last night. We're doing a second guest show. I told him, I said, man, you ever threw a pass like that? Man, that pass would have been intercepted. He was like, man, my guy, that's never happened to me. Never happened to me like that. And I think Jameis was trying to throw the football, out of bounds. I think he was trying to throw it away. And just, man, you got to give Callaway a lot of credit. He got up and went get it. And so there are passes sometimes you say, oh, my God, or why'd you throw that? So I think you're seeing the evolution here of what Sean wants this offense to be like and what can it do well. Okay, you can't jam the square peg in a round hole. You can't do what you've done in the past with Drew and think that Jameis is going to do the exact same thing. He's not that style quarterback. You got to figure out what he does best. And then once you figure that out, then the other pieces come into place. But again, you can't say it's just Winston. The offensive line play has been all over the board, sometimes really good and sometimes shaky. Receivers. Now, people don't see it on TV, and that's what they react to. They don't see that receiver downfield that's not open. Where do you want him to go with the ball? Do you want him to put it up? But listen, and they got a lot of people that don't want Winston at quarterback.
Yeah.
That bottom line, they got a lot of people. Oh, put Taysom Hill in. Taysom Hill. Okay. He tried to throw a little jump pass. And listen, I'm a big Taysom Hill fan. Man, I think the world of him as a football player. But I've also seen him throw. He tried to throw that little jump pass. Man, everybody's covered. So he got to come down with it. And he takes off running. And Taysom understands. Listen, when you get paid over $10 million a year, you understand real well that you have a certain niche on your football team. He's the best power runner they got. And that's not a debate on that. He's the best power runner they got. And he's taking some nasty shots sometimes.
Right.
But man, he finds his way around, and he's got some speed and some power that, such a unique player, does a great job on special teams. Wherever you want him to play, he'll end up playing.
Yeah.
Right now, I think the biggest upgrade has to be in the passing game. And what that is protection, running good routes, gaining separation, making the right throw. So it's a combination of all three. You just can't post this on Winston. You just can't do it just on him. It's got to be the other two phases in that has to come together. But like in anything else in this world, quarterback get way too much credit when they win, and he gets way too much blame when they lose. Same thing as the head. He ain't coaching every position. He's the head coach. Okay.
Right.
The same way at quarterback, he can only play one position. Okay. He can't play wide receiver. He can't play left tackle. He can't play center. He can't play right guard. He can't play tight end. He's got to play quarterback.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be better. I'll be honest. That's the one area I thought would be better at this stage than what it is. Even though we've talked about it numerous times in the offseason, that would be the area that had the biggest question marks. How would it look in the passing game? How would it evolve? And we still don't have a complete answer to that.
Yeah. I think it has a lot to do with Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith being out. I mean, there's not a number one receiver. I mean, I like Callaway a lot. I think that he's an incredible player, but he's not a number one. I mean, and right now you're going up against the best cornerback that whatever team has to offer. And I don't think he's, at that stage where he can actually win those matchups. I mean, those guys are dynamic. They do great things, Harris, Humphreys, and, but they're still undrafted free agents. I mean, these aren't guys that are going to be, 1,500-yard receivers, in my opinion. I mean, your 1,500-yard receivers on the sidelines. So I just think like once Michael Thomas gets back and Traquan Smith gets back, now you have your number one, number two, respectively. I think you'll start seeing Callaway make plays, Deontay Harris make more plays, but you definitely need that guy who can win those one-on-one matchups, and that's who Michael Thomas is. So I don't think it's going to change until he gets back.
The other thing too is we see the evolution of Deontay Harris,
right?
Where Deuce and I we talk about this a lot. Man, listen, we both got tired of seeing this little wide receiver screen, this jet sweep. Come on. You right up with Deontay Harris. He's 5'6". He's again, that second number, the first number is a 1 when you get on that second number. If it's a 7, it's either a 1 or a 2 behind. He's like 171 or 170. He's not a really big guy.
Right.
They're using him more vertical, I think, is a big plus for this football team. to get him out in space and use him on the chalk. He made a couple of really nice third down conversion catches. People don't realize, man, Deontay Harris, he's a really good route runner.
Yeah.
But I see him on the small stuff because you know why? They got way too much traffic where you can get hit and hit a lot. Man, get him outside, on the chalk, 10, 15 yards downfield. Okay, so now you're up against a 180-pound, 190-pound cornerback. Right. That guy, he's not beating you up too much. That 250-pound linebacker, though, might, kind of want to take your head off.
Right.
So it's different. You see the way Sean and his genius in using Deontay more vertically downfield to get people off the line of scrimmage. What that does is opens up the running game a little bit more for Alvin, for Tony Jones, for Taysom, whoever you got in the lineup. That's the one player you can say it's different from a year ago, because a year ago they were throwing him a little wide receiver screen. Okay, catch it behind the line of scrimmage. All of a sudden, it's like a team picture of the defense, man, because they see him catch it. Everybody's converging. Because if you one step, man, he's off to the races.
Yep.
Using him further downfield on a lot of vertical routes and a lot of deeper routes downfield, which helps him survive the NFL.
Right.
Because he's not a very big guy.
True.
And you can't get him knocked around. Okay, if you're going to run the wide receiver screen or the jet sweep, man, let Ty Montgomery do that.
Right.
Okay, because Ty's former running back. He knows what to do out in open space, and he's a bigger player than what he is. So that's the one guy offensively you can say from a year ago, it's different for him.
Right.
It's different for him and how they're using him. And I give Sean a lot of credit. He adjusted and understood. You can't keep running those type plays with Harris and think he's going to survive an entire season. He's going to get beat up, small as he is. That's not a lot of guys that are small like that play in the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, even with that divisional round game, I mean, that was one of the plays that got him hurt. I want to say it was a wide receiver screen. I don't know if it was Devin White or Levante David hit him, and he ended up leaving the game with a neck injury, because, I mean, he was dealing with a neck injury throughout the entire season last year. So I do think, like I said, when Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith comes back, I think you're really going to see Deontay Harris really take off, especially like some of those down the field vertical throws. I really think you're probably going to see like more shots down the field going towards his way, because he's such a dynamic player. Like that punt in New England this past Sunday, I think the punt, it reached like the 6-yard line, and you had all of the Patriots special teamers going down there. He turned that into a 23-yard gain, and after that, Bill Belichick, I can see him talking to the punter. Don't punt it to him no more. I mean, it's just how it's amazing how he turns something, that you think probably would, anybody probably lose yards on. He turns it into a positive play. He's such a dynamic player, and he's such a weapon for the Saints to have. And I think as weeks go by, we're really going to see what he has to offer, and I'm looking forward to it. And because he's gotten better as a receiver.
The other thing, too, is this football team has got to get the tight ends more involved. They built to throw the football to the tight end. And we've seen in the past with Sean, if it's been David Thomas, Jeremy Shockey, Jimmy Graham, Ben Watson, they tried with Jared Cook. It didn't work.
Right.
But at times you saw it that, they want to get the ball to the tight end. I think it's something that Troutman and Juwan Johnson, they've got to be a bigger part of this game plan.
Right.
Because that's where the mismatches come into play here, where you have a 6'4+ tight end racing downfield against a linebacker or a safety. You should win matches. Right. And I think that's part of the passing attack that's got to get better. And you go back into Jameis's history with the Buccaneers, and him throwing the football to O.J. Howard.
Right.
He's fed the tight end the football. So that's something that has to get better throughout the season. No question about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought that Juwan Johnson, he had a really good game against Green Bay, but I thought that he would be much better because of his experience as a route runner, playing receiver all those years. I thought that him, going to the tight end position, him having that experience as a receiver, being able to run those routes and win those those matchups against linebackers and safeties, I thought that would be beneficial. But they definitely need to bring a little bit more to the table than we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Final question for you, Mike. We got to talk a little bit about the defense. The secondary in the offseason, we thought it was going to be one of the Saints' biggest shortcomings. It turns out to be one of the best, and well put together defenses we've seen in a while. What do you think is the main reason for the Saints' success when it comes to the secondary? Because last season, I mean, we seen like at the beginning of the season, you had a lot of pass interference calls, a lot of holding calls. Seems like this year, they have really good eye discipline. They're generating turnovers. If I'm not mistaken, I think they're leading the league right now in turnovers. What do you think about the Saints secondary, and what's the difference from last year to this year?
I think early pressure. You seeing it, and you during training camp, you're around all these defensive linemen kind of all look the same. Right. If you're around, Davenport isn't playing, but Davenport, Cam Jordan, Carl Granderson, Passano, Peyton Turner, you put them together, they all sort of built in sort of same manner, getting a lot of pass rush off the edge. Now that'll get better when you get the best defensive lineman you have on this team back. And that's David Onyemata. Now he's a man at football. I don't care if they're playing him inside or out. And I was talking to Pete Jenkins about this because Pete works, Pete's 80 years old. He's working with all these guys in the offseason. He worked with David for, I think it's 3 weeks this offseason. Like, Mike, one of the things I was talking to Ryan about was, man, y'all maybe take a look at him. Maybe play him at defensive end. Now he said, listen, I'm not taking credit for it, but I put that big man out at defensive end. I want to see how that tackle handles him because his initial get off is so fast. And Pete was telling me, so Mike, listen, I've coached a lot of big men in my day. When we coach you 80 years old, that's over 50 years of coaching at major college level in the National Football League. And he's training all these guys today. He's like, man, there ain't a lot of guys. I could count them on fingers that athletically are more talented or have been more talented than Onyemata.
Wow.
Like, listen, you tell Sean he better pay him. Contract deal with, he said, tell Sean he better pay him because he said, man, I'm telling you, I do know defensive lineman. He's big time. So I think it starts there. You got pressure. You've been able to stop the run in 2 of the 3 games. You've been able to stop the running attack. And I think the sort of rookie evolution of Paulson Adebo has been a big part of it. While we thought he would be part of the package, when you drafted him in round 3, you didn't think when you picked him he's going to be a starter day one.
Right.
I don't think anybody felt that way. I think the biggest thing with that is it goes to show this old school thinking. And I'm not a young dude anymore, but I don't have this thinking. Oh, he quit on his team at Stanford. So I didn't pick. They got a lot of people in this league that still got that idea. Man, my thing I always tell them is, he didn't quit on his team. Pac-12 quit on him. He opted out, just like Penei Sewell opted out, just like Slater opted out in the Big Ten. Big Ten and Pac-12 had decided they weren't playing college football in August.
Right.
They had made that decision. We're not playing because now once they saw the SEC was passing the collection plate and it was filling up pretty good, that deal is, man, hey, we into this. we into this now. So you wanted him to come back? No, you bailed on him. But they got to listen. I use this term. They got a lot of stupid in this world, and that's part of it. That you think he bailed out on your football team in August when you weren't going to play. That's why he lasted until round 3, because if he played, you're talking about he would have probably been picked a round earlier. He'd have been an early to mid second round pick instead of where he got selected. He looks like he belongs in the NFL. Okay. He's not intimidated. And it's an old Ed Reed line. Ed told me years ago, because he always called me Cookie. He said, Cookie, he said, let me tell you something. He said, first thing they do with a rookie, he said, they want to break you down here mentally. They get in your head. You ain't never been challenged like that. And you're a really good cornerback or a really good safety, and they don't challenge you. High school, they don't challenge you in college. They stay away from you. But he says, the first few games I played in Baltimore, I was targeted. I think he used the number 21 in 4 games. I was targeted 21 times. I showed him I could play. And if you mess with me, you're not going to break me mentally. He said, not where I came from. You're not going to break me mentally. So you keep throwing, and I'm going to make you pay the price. But he said, for some guys, it breaks them. It breaks them mentally. Then you start to make physical mistakes out on the football field. Yeah. I look at Paulson Adebo. They picking on him, but it ain't breaking him.
Right.
It's not breaking him, and he's still hanging in there. And it's almost like, I get it. I gave it up, but I'm coming right back. Yeah. But additions of Bradley Roby, I think that was a nice deal, and you got the Texans to pay, part of the deal. It's almost like an NBA type deal. They got him to pay part of the salary to bring in. Bradley's been a starter in this league at either nickel or out on the edge most of his career.
Right.
And you got Trufant. Now, I think Desmond still play. Big question mark with Desmond is, can he stay healthy?
Right.
For any length of time. Because when you get older, you get nicked up. So it's different because we didn't know about those other guys coming into the season.
Right.
Patrick Robinson might be the starter on the other side. Who knows what they did with PJ, but they didn't want to, from information we got, they didn't want to move around the safeties too much. They wanted to keep PJ as that dime safety and use him in the different packages. CJ Garner-Johnson, using him the way they had used him. The 2 safeties are really playing well. When you look at Marcus Williams, Malcolm Jenkins, and Malcolm brings so much to the table as I would describe it. And I told someone who called last night, he's the interpreter. Okay. If you didn't know a foreign language and somebody's trying to teach you, he's the interpreter. He's telling you, this is what he's saying. For a lot of these guys, you got to tell them what to do every play. They know what to do on some plays, but you got to adjust and be able to communicate. You got to have a chirper back there or an interpreter back there to tell you kind of this is what's happening. Malcolm's terrific at that. But I think it's been, to me, the play of Paulson Adebo as a rookie corner that he has not broke. Because he knows one thing. If I get beat a few times and Roby comes in, I might not see that starting position, for a little while. Because, Roby's deal is, hey, if you give me a chance, Adebo's not coming back. He's not starting opposite Lattimore. And I think, too, is you see Marcus Williams has played tremendously well.
Yeah.
And it gets a little bit underrated of what he does as a deep safety. But I can't say enough about Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, he's played terrific. Have a cornerback, and he's doing it kind of one-handed today and what he was been able to do. But where he's really improved, TJ, I think, is in his open field tackling.
Yeah.
Okay, if a receiver makes the catch, okay, he makes it, but I make the tackle. I don't let him get 10, 12 yards downfield. That's important today to make that, because you're going to give up yardage. You're going to give up receptions, but it's to make that tackle right then and there. And so, man, overall, the improvement in Lattimore, the improvement with the communications with Marcus Williams, also with Malcolm, man, CJ is who he is, man, I want him on my team. A lot of people, oh, man, he talks too much. Man, I can care less if he talks too much. He's productive, and he gets in other guys' head. But I think the big thing we didn't know on draft day was, for a guy who did not play for an entire season, how well he would adjust to the NFL, how much titanium he's got in the backbone. He's got a lot of it. You can tell. And going out and get Roby, certainly I think was a big acquisition for this football team, because down the stretch, you're going to need them. Because I'm a big believer is you don't need just 2 corners. You don't need just 3 corners. You need 4 in the NFL, just because of the way they stretch you out. I think the addition of Roby and then getting Trufant, the improvement and the progression of Adebo, man, has worked in line. So you got to give Chris Richard a lot of credit there.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we talk about Dennis Allen, and I've been knowing Ryan Nielsen for a long time. I knew Ryan when he was a player at USC.
Okay.
Coached him at USC, so he had introduced me to Ryan when he was still playing there. And Ryan's a terrific coach along defensive line. Mike Hodges has turned out to be a really good linebackers coach. But to bring in a veteran like Chris Richard, who understands this game, understands the physicality of this game. But one of the things Chris told us in one of the early interviews at training camp was, I am all about communication. That he felt that was such a big key in the NFL, where you're passing players off. You got to know what to do, making sure your assignments are correct. And not just part of the time, not 50%, not 70%, 100% of the time. I think Richard's done is flown under the radar of the communication and the lack of big mistakes in the secondary, which has hurt him in the past.
Yep. I think that guy is definitely the unsung hero of the improvements of this defense. You know, I just look at when he was in Dallas. Like, Rod Marinelli was the defensive coordinator, but he was like right there. You know, I don't feel like it's a coincidence. Some of the best defenses and some of the best defensive performances always has his handprints on it somewhere. Even with Seattle, when Dan Quinn was there. I mean, it's always been him somewhere in the vicinity. And I think that he is definitely a good add to that room. You know, I mean, you can never have too many creative juices flowing and creativity and you know what I'm saying, and different things that you can bring to the table. But I definitely think that he was a great find for the Saints. Wouldn't surprise me in the next 2 to 3 years he's not head coaching somebody's team. You know, I mean, he's that good in my opinion.
PJ, one of the with Sean is that when you coach a unit, you the head coach of that unit.
Right.
Okay, Ryan Nielsen's the head coach of the defensive line. Sean ain't going in there telling them what to do. Mike Hodges, he's the head coach of the linebackers. He's telling them what to do. Chris is the head coach of the secondary. Curtis, he's the head coach of the wide receivers. Okay, right. And we can go on and on with it. But Sean lets his coaches coach. He trusts them. And so if you mess up, okay, it's not necessarily the player he's jumping on. He's getting on you as the coach because he's giving you that authority to make that. And I've talked to enough assistant coaches that have coached under him and have left even, and all say the same thing. If it was Greg McMahon, who was the special teams coordinator, Coach O, who was the defensive line coach, Mike New now is the head coach in college football, that, you know, he gives you the keys to the Ferrari. Okay. Now, don't wreck it. Okay. If you wreck it, then you come and you got to talk to me about it. But Mike New probably had one of the best lines I've ever heard about Drew Brees. And so I was asking him, you know, how is it to be in that room with Drew? And he said, you know, there aren't a lot of people in this world like this. But he said, being in an offensive meeting room with Drew is like being in a room with a college professor teaching history, and he tells you what's going to happen before it happens. So he said, Mike, listen, there's not a lot of guys like that. Like you said, maybe Peyton Manning or Tom can do those sort of things, but there's not a lot of people walking this earth that can do it. And Drew knew the offense better than what Sean did. Sometimes I really believe that he knew it better than what Sean knew the offense. And so I think that's a lot of why you hear a lot of people squawking that, okay, is Jameis is doing this, Jameis is doing that. But there has to be that link in the chain between head coach, who's calling the plays, and the quarterback on what works. And we still in that almost the infancy stage of it, of seeing how this goes, to see if this is a long-term issue, if it's a short-term deal, if this team's got to look outside the building next year for another quarterback. Can Jameis make those rises throughout the year? We're going to see. But it's a new way to win. And don't complain. Man, I don't care about style points. They don't put that up nowhere. You don't get paid those style points. All I know is you win with defense, a running game, special teams. Now, when you get into the playoffs, it's a different story.
Right.
Quarterback's got to play big for that to happen. So we'll see here. But, man, if you would have told me before the season you 2-1, I'll say, hey, I'll take it. With a shot at 3, with the way the Giants are playing,
right, I
would say I'll take it. But let me tell you what happens from the passing standpoint. And you would say, tell me that again? We just throw for that little bit amount of yardage?
Right. Yeah, we won games. Yeah. I mean, 21 passes, 130, 140 yards, and we still winning. I'll take it.
Yeah. It's all about, this is a productivity world. I don't care what you're doing. It's a productivity world. And for the NFL, it's about wins.
Right.
Like watching the Cowboys last night, they need Dak to put up big numbers. Because they're going to give up they're going to give up points.
Right.
But it's a different situation than with the Saints. So, people see it on TV. Well, how come Dak's doing that in Dallas, but Jameis is not doing that here? It's a totally different outlay. And give me Amari Cooper and give me CD Lamb, Wilson. Hey, yeah, I'll take that.
Right.
There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle here. And I think that in the season of reboot, that this team is 2-1. I think you spoil because they've won 11 and 13 and 13 and 12 games.
Yeah.
That you expected that all would look the same. Yeah. And it's not gonna look the same. But guess what? You're still winning.
Yeah.
In a month where you traditionally have not done well.
Yep. I mean, you can't argue with wins. Like I always say, it's I graduated from Jackson State, Mike, and everybody's talking about Deion Sanders and the Jackson State's defense, and they're talking about this kind of same situation. Good defense, offense leaves a lot to be desired. But I'm like, you can fix some of the issues, and you feel better about fixing issues in a win. But when you're losing and, you have some issues, it's like everybody probably have their little thoughts and feelings about what the team needs to do and what direction they need to go in. And now you have like a bunch of dysfunction that can possibly happen. So as long as they continue to find success, find ways to win, you can fix some of the issues, because we know that Sean Payton is one of the best play callers in football. We know Michael Thomas is coming back, and we know that he is going to put these guys in positions to succeed. I just feel that way. I mean, even back when Teddy Bridgewater first started, I think we had Jim Trout on the show, and he was talking about how they played the Cowboys, and he said he seen Sean Payton off in the corner, and he said, "What's wrong, Coach? Y'all won." He said, "I didn't put Teddy in the best position to succeed." He said, "I got to work on that." And then that's when we start to see, Teddy kind of open up. He had that big game versus Tampa. So I think that it just takes some time in order for, the offense to try to find themselves, Jameis, in order to know what Sean needs and what Sean knows what Jameis needs. And when we get these guys back, I feel like we'll see a much better version of an offense. But I'm just happy that we're actually seeing a running game. That's something that you're definitely going to need in a postseason.
Because that's something you and I have talked about so much throughout these podcasts, that you got to get a running game going. Man, all this analytical stuff, that's all great and fine.
Right.
But let me tell you the story about the physicality, controlling the clock, being able to kind of do your will on another opponent.
Right.
And I think that's what the running game does. But the two things that come to mind is, as this season works along, is one, man, Sean Payton collects good assistant coaches like an old lady collects cats. Lady, she feed that cat, next thing you know, they got 30 cats around the house. But Sean, he's been able to collect a really good assistant coaches, just like that, feeding that cat, and he attracts them to this football team.
Right.
And you got to give him a lot of credit here. Now, a lot of people want to take that back. Oh, postseason. And listen, I feel the same way. Man, there's some missed opportunities there in postseason over the years that, man, you can look back at. And I'm sure he's looked back at and say, how could we have messed this up in that particular game? But this is a well-coached football team. They smart. They know what to do, especially when you look at how well that he has collected these coaches and how well they are coached out on that football field. I think that's a huge plus. And the other thing, number 2 point, the new kid in town is in the NFC South, and that's the Carolina Panthers. That we can talk about Tampa, but when Brady walks away, that team's not going to be the same. And who knows what that's going to be. But the Carolina Panthers are for real. They're the youngest team in the National Football League. Matt Rule has built a really good football team there. And they're not going to get bad like overnight. So those 2 things jump at me early on, as the Panthers have been the surprise team in the NFC. They have played really well. Sam Darnold's done a good job. Defensively, they got all that collection of young talent. And secondly, Sean got them assistant coaching cats that are pretty good. They have really done a great job with a lot of changeover in the offseason and a lot younger football team.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, you got to be impressed with the job that Carolina has done. And Matt Rule is known for being a team builder, and he's definitely built a nice, young, formidable team. And those guys are, on rookie deals. I mean, so that means that they're going to grow together, and it also gives you a bigger window in order for you to generate success. So they're definitely not going to go anywhere. But the Saints are going to be right there because, like you just said, I mean, they put together some of the best guys, scout team, coaches, front office guys. So it's good to have that on your side, especially when you're trying to go for that Super Bowl. But Mike, I want to say thank you very much for being on the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for being here, and let everybody know how they can get in touch with you, and also the show on WWL.
Yeah, on Twitter at Mike Detillier, on Facebook Mike Detillier, on WWL every day, Monday through Thursday, 4 to 6, and then sometimes a little longer depending on the coaches that we have on. They keep me on till 7, but that's all right with me. And then part of the pregame show, certainly with the WWL and also LSU coverage that we do here on WWL. So it's been great, and I hear the guy tearing down my shed to the left of me right now. So he's doing some business there. I got a little damage for Hurricane Ida, and so I had to tear down a shed that's been up since 1986. It took flight. It wasn't a running play. It was a vertical game that. So I had a 16 by 34 shed that took off in flight and got slid across my cement. But it was great to be on with TJ. And you're doing a great job. I appreciate what you do to educate and give people their opinions on the Saints. And man, you're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, thank you so much. But I'm just taken back that you have a shed the same age as me. I was born in 1986. So
that was at one time my kids used it. It was a playroom. It was like a schoolhouse. It did turn into a work shed and that sort of thing. But listen, sometimes the memory is always there. But it got to go, and we were fortunate, and I was fortunate, unlike a lot of people further south than me that really got devastated. And they got people living in tents and makeshift homes, and the federal government has really dropped the ball on this. You would think that we so fast to respond to people in other countries and the people, and you wouldn't do this to your own people. It's shocking to me to see this happen. And you and I talked about this before. It's the first time this has happened, and you should be more ready for it. No matter your politics on this, come on, this is about mom and dad, and also about little kids, and for you not to respond quicker than this is terrible. For me, it was minor. I got a new roof and everything else, and I got a few things here and there. But man, compared to some of the stuff I've seen, it's unbelievable. And the fury of Mother Nature, where I live 66 miles from the coast.
Yeah,
I got 145-mile-an-hour winds at my house.
Wow. Yeah, we talked about that, before the show. I mean, it's just, I just want these people to, to get help, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I just think that they need to respond a little bit faster.
Yes.
But I'm just glad that you and your family are okay. I'm glad that, that you all, you had some losses, but like I said, you still have each other and those things can be replaced.
Yeah,
but,
replace everything else. And everybody asks, man, how was the archives, the collection? I said, man, everything was good. They were more worried about that than they were about me. So I don't know if I should take that good or bad, but I get, in that particular deal. But
yeah, that is a great collection you got there behind you. I mean, I can't see your whole collection, but it was behind you. Any indication of your collection? I mean, I can understand why they're concerned about it.
Time I'll do it, I'll change it around. I'll give you the back view because I got like 4 views I can do. So it's pretty good. Everybody comes in here, they got that. Wow. They see Terry Bradshaw up there. He got hair. This is Louisiana when he was at Louisiana Tech. Up on the Sports Illustrated, he got hair on his head. And then I got Bruce Jenner, and they were like, "Whoa, wait, who is that? Bruce Jenner? That's the same. That's the same guy. He was the world's greatest athlete." No, when I was growing up, man, Bruce Jenner, man, he was a stud player. I mean, and he was unbelievable as a track athlete.
Yeah.
And those two things get asked all the time. It's not about Muhammad Ali. People take a stare at it because I got Ali in the different stages of his life. As an athlete, but it's about Bruce Jenner. They was like, that's Bruce Jenner, and they look at that. That's Terry. He got hair on his head. He wasn't all.
I can remember. Like, I didn't, I couldn't watch, Terry. Because I mean, I wasn't born yet, but I mean, I've seen like biographies about his life, like a football life, and just how incredible he was at Louisiana Tech, and also just some of his I guess like his dysfunction between him and his former coach Chuck Noll, and how they didn't get along, and also how he had to adjust from being a guy guy that's coming down from from Louisiana to Pittsburgh. He was talking about how much of a culture shock that was.
Yeah, that was a big culture shock for him. But the other thing too is with Terry was the original gunslinger. Terry would have wanted to throw the football every play, but Chuck didn't want that, and he sort of bridled Terry a little bit. You did win 4 Super Bowls, so that was a lot. And the AFC is similar to what it is today. They would have created a crop back in the 70s, but Terry, he's character, unbelievable. And I have a friend of mine lives not far from me, Frank Lewis. People keep up with Grambling and the SWAC. Man, Frank was an unbelievable player. Late 60s, early 70s. I think he played 6-7 years with the Steelers, won a couple of Super Bowls, then got traded to Buffalo.
Yeah.
And he had a very familiar name as a roommate.
Yeah.
Buffalo, O.J. Simpson.
Wow.
That was Frank's roommate when they were, you go on the road and stuff like that. That was his deal. And Frank played 6-7 years with the Buffalo Bills, great receiver. Man, one of the toughest guys, walking on this body. He was one tough guy. And so, man, you played 13, 14 years in the National Football League back then.
That was saying something.
Active receiver. Like Frank said, I'd still be playing, Mike. I'm in my 70s today. I'd still be playing if they protected me back then. And he looks great. For when you get in his 70s, he still looks like, man, he's still quite the athlete. But goes to show how much talent we have here in this state. And how we all sort of bond together, because we got that one common deal. We all grew up here. If it's in North Louisiana, if it's in Alexander, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, on the bayou, out in Acadiana, we all grew up here. And so that's the lingo's a little bit different, but we all understand one another. We all understand one another.
Absolutely, and Mike, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your stories. I mean, look, you're one of the best storytellers that I know, and I appreciate your wisdom and your knowledge and bringing it to the show.
Bye.
Yeah. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. Once again, everybody, Mike Detillier, you make sure you check him out on WWL and follow him on Twitter at Mike Detillier, as well as other social media platforms. All right. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you, TJ. Appreciate it.
All right.